Whether you're dreaming of becoming a lead teacher, stepping into your first director role, or leading a thriving childcare program of your own, you don't have to figure it out alone. Welcome to the Childcare Director's Chair, where leadership coach, speaker, co-author, and multi-center owner Erica Sakosio shares the wisdom she's gained from decades of leading successful early childhood programs and developing future leaders. Each episode is designed to help you use your voice, lead with confidence, build a positive workplace culture, and become the kind of leader your team is excited to follow. Expect real talk, big laughs, bold leadership truth, practical strategies, and the encouragement to believe in yourself every step of the way. Because when Erica teaches leadership, she's teaching what she's lived. The Child Care Director's Chair is proudly sponsored by Watch Me Grow, supporting childcare leaders with innovative technology that helps build stronger programs and stronger family connections. Together, they believe leadership isn't a title, it's an action. Pull up your chair, future leader. Here's Erica Sakosio.
2, 1. Hey guys, it's Erica here with the Child Care Director's Chair podcast. Super excited you are here today, but then again, I'm always excited, so it doesn't take much. I am so excited about talking about using your voice. You know, childcare leaders spend every day advocating for children, families, and educators inside their programs. But what happens when we take that same passion and talk about our businesses, and we do that beyond our four walls, which I think is incredibly important. In this episode of the Child Care Director's Chair podcast, we are sitting down with Tim, I'm going to hope I say it right, Kaminski, from the Texas Licensed Child Care Association to talk about how childcare leaders, owners, directors can come together and use their voices to make sure that we are heard. We are the workforce behind the workforce, and he has been talking on national levels, regional levels, his state. He's just really kind of been advocating everywhere. I had the pleasure of meeting Tim at one of his conferences where I had the pleasure of keynoting. And I met him before that. I think I met him in Tennessee first at the National Child Care Association conference where he won an award this year for Advocate of the Year. So I couldn't think of anybody better to talk about advocacy than Tim. So welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell folks a little bit about yourself, because I know you're not just an advocate. I shouldn't use the word just, but I know you do more than advocate for childcare industry. You are in the childcare industry. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Awesome.
So tell folks about your background. Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Tim Kaminski. Everybody always has a problem with my last name. But I am from Texas. I'm just outside of the Houston market. Our family has been in the childcare industry for over 40 years, but I didn't start out in the business. I started out in healthcare. I'm actually a licensed and certified speech pathologist, and I did that for probably about 25 years before I came to work for our family's business in 2008. And so when I came into the industry, like a lot of people, I didn't know a lot about it. I spent a year working in one of our centers before I could even become a director. And so it's been a big learning curve. It's been almost 18 years now. That's hard to believe. That's longer than actually any other single job that I've had in the past. So, but we operate two primary locations in our market, and then we also do 7 after-school programs on our elementary campuses. So we do both segments from the babies all the way up through the 12-year-olds. And I guess my advocacy work started about 10 years ago via a different entity other than the Texas Licensed Child Care Association. But when I found TLCCA 4 years ago, I was like, finally, here's somebody that is speaking about childcare from a business perspective and not just about early education. And not that early education isn't important, but maintaining a healthy business is to be able to do those kind of services. So I've been doing that, like you said, both at the national level as well as state level, and locally, getting to know our politicians and stuff. So that's a little bit about my background, and where I'm at today.
It's so funny because when we were in Texas, we realized our path were almost identical with not expecting to be in the industry, starting off in school age, being on boards. Like it was, and we started like almost the same year, once I opened my own school. So I thought that was pretty interesting how everybody is
Mhm.
so parallel and connected. Was there a specific moment when you realized that maybe there was some type of problem or something inside of your own business where you realized this is a bigger industry problem than my four walls? Was there something specific that made you say, we need to really be talking about this business side of things?
Yeah, actually, after that first year becoming a director, and so then I had to be more responsible about, the inspection process and everything, and I'd go through the licensing regs, and I'm like, where did this even come from? A lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. It's just nonsensical, redundant, and I was like, how does that even happen? And about the same time, I got a flyer in the mail about a conference, and it was being put on by the Texas Association for Education of Young Children, so the Texas version of NACI. And
Hmm.
went to that conference, took some classes and stuff. I think maybe I took one administrative session, but I got to know some of the people that were running TACI, and so. Um, they talked about how they would go to Austin during legislative sessions, and I'm like, "Well, what's a legislative session?" I really was not in tune to any politics or anything like that. And so, I would go with them every once in a while, and then they started asking me to come and give public testimony about how different things that either in licensing or other related policy stuff was impacting my business. And so that was the first time that I had any realization of, oh, we could go and talk to somebody about the things that we don't like with regards to licensing or subsidy, but not really understanding what the power behind that could potentially be. Because again, I just saw myself as a childcare business owner. Politicians were somebody that I saw as somebody being above me. And, I've got a master's degree and I've done all this kind of stuff. But somehow in my head, I grew up in a
Hmm.
very small rural town. And so when you grow up not having anything, and there's other people around you that do have more power than you or appear to have more power, that kind of intimidation, if you grow up with that, as an adult, sometimes it's hard to break out of that. And that's where I was. I was just like, I can't go talk to these people. They're not going to listen to me. And so I would say it took a couple of years before I got comfortable with it. And there's still times now, like if I were to meet the president today, I would still be, like, "Oh my god, I can't talk to him," and that's crazy. I should be able to, because I've spoken to senators now, and I've spoken to representatives, and, but it's that thing that I also think has been put on childcare that we're not good enough to be in those circles, and I think that's changed a whole lot in these last couple of years because now we're demanding to be in those circles, but I think for so long, it was just, "Oh, you do childcare? Oh, you poor thing."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "No, we do childcare. We are the most important thing that keeps everything else going." But we didn't use our voices in a way to demand that level of respect. And so, early on, it was just not understanding who was making the decisions about how my business was going to operate and how could I make changes in that. So that's, I think, where it started for me was just looking at the standards going, this doesn't make sense, or getting an email from licensing saying, here's a new thing you have to comply with. I'm like, well, when did y'all come up with that? And having to
Yeah.
learn that it starts well above the state agency and it works its way down. And so that's where I operate now, is at going to the top of it to try to prevent things from trickling down to the agency that doesn't really have control. They just have to implement what they've been told to
Yeah.
do. And that again was a big learning curve for me.
Yeah. I can remember the first time that I had to speak at our state house. There was a change in the way that DHS funding was being distributed to families. And I remember I thought I was going to vomit, and I'm a pretty confident girl, but it is a little nerve wracking at first when you go up there and all these people are, sitting in the seats and just like waiting for you to talk in your like minute and a half that you have to make a point. But now I'm pretty confident. And, I think that's probably when we talk about advocacy, where people's mind goes to first, like going down to the state house or the White House or, wherever people are lobbying at that minute. But sometimes it just starts as simple as sending an email or making a phone call to
Mhm.
someone that at a certain levels, and just call your councilman and your state reps and get to know them. But even before that, let's talk about how important the relationships are before you need to
Mhm.
ask, right? So talk a little bit
Right.
about how you've been able to make those relationships and maybe what listeners can do to start to make those relationships with the folks in their area.
Okay. I have a funny story because it does start local. And so several years ago, we had a U.S. representative from our county that my wife knew his wife through some social activities that they did, different volunteer work. But I had never met him and I'd never socialized with him. And my wife at the time was so involved in our community, and there would be these gala events and stuff, and you have to dress up for them. And I hate to dress up. And so one of these events, she's like, "You've got to go with me because Pete's going to be there." Pete Olson was our representative at the time, and I'm like, "Who's Pete Olson?" She's like, "You don't know who he is? He's our rep." I'm like, "Okay, well, fine." So we go to the event, and I'm in this big room, and again, I feel like a fish out of water because these are big business people and just a lot of big hoorah type people, and so we were sitting at their table, and conversations across tables and stuff like that. And I told him what kind of work I did, and he goes, "Well, I'd like to come out and see your center." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I want to come see what you do." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" So we finished that event. I called my mom. I'm like, "Mom, we've got this U.S. representative, and he wants to come look at our building and see what we do and stuff." And she's like, "Well, we can't do that. We can't." I'm like, "Well, I've already told him he could." So he he
He's
he
coming.
he he's coming, he can't stop that train. So he shows up, and usually when, people like that, go out to activities, they'll have maybe 1 or 2 other of their staff members with them. And so, typically, they show up in suits and things like that. But I think that he understood because where he was coming to, because my mom's original location is in the older part of Rosenberg, Texas, which is a little rural community. And so he came in not in a suit jacket and stuff, just came in, in
Mm.
slacks and a shirt, button shirt and everything. And so he came in and all the kids were saying hi, hi, hi. Um, and then at one point he goes, "Could I, read a book to the kids?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess so." So this guy is like 6'10". I mean, he is super tall. And he got a book. He sat on the floor. He didn't sit in one of our little chairs or sit on the edge of a table. He got down on the floor. And I'm just sitting back going, "Oh my God." And of course we're snapping pictures and everything. And so the kids loved it and stuff. And then um, he's a Republican. And years ago, I don't know how many years back, there was a putt-putt golf place in our town that went out of business, and they had this big elephant, those big fiberglass animals, that would be centered around a putt-putt thing. So somehow my dad got that, and he put it in the backyard of our daycare center. And so although the place is called Gingerbread House Daycare, we were more known for that big gray elephant in the backyard than anything else. Well, him being a Republican, I was like, "Hey, we've got this big gray elephant in the backyard. Would you like to go get a picture with it?" And he's like, "Sure." And we go out there and he gets a picture with that. My mom's with him and stuff. And that's what made the newspaper. That's what got us on the front page. And it was like, "Oh, this is how this works. You've got to know somebody to get to somebody. And then that's how the process can start, or makes it a little bit easier to start."
Yeah, yeah.
And every time I have to kind of tell about my background, I always laugh about that because I don't think of that moment had happened, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I still would have felt so intimidated. I think you said it earlier, you and I can get up on stage in front of lots of people
Mhm.
and and everybody thinks, God, I could never do that. I could never be that. It took us a long time to get comfortable doing that. And I
Mhm.
know it was the same for you. Um, but it's those little moments like that. Had my wife not forced me into going to that event with her, I probably never would have met him. We're still friends today. Today, he and I are working. He's no longer in DC. He's back here in Texas, but he and I work on things at the state level, and we get to use his relationships to address our issues as childcare business owners, childcare professionals. And so that has been a 10-year relationship now. And it's just amazing where it's taken things.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. I just finished, it's not out yet, but I just finished writing a book called The Ripple of Impact. And, we as educators so often think about the impact that we make on children and families, which we definitely do. But we do so much more than that. We impact our industry, we impact our businesses, our communities. There's just everything we do, one thing leads to another and another. And I loved, getting to be there during your first keynote. You would not have known that that was your first keynote, so keep doing
Mhm.
that, Tim. Great job.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank
so
you.
is there anything that has happened in your state? While I was there, I heard people talking about reimbursement and Texas Rising Stars. Has there been any changes or anything going on with that in your state that you guys have done some work around in terms of advocacy?
Yeah, a whole lot of things. The pivotal point for us, I think, was in 2019. That year, they passed something called House Bill 3, and it was going to require all of the public schools to start offering full day 4-year-old pre K for those kids that qualified. So, low income, English as a second language, military, all these different categories. Um, it was going to, and that was going to have to start in the fall of 2019. Um, and we were like, "Wait a minute." Again, it was one of those things again where we didn't find out about it until May of 2019. The bill had not passed yet. And so, when I found out about it, again, I wasn't, connected to any group. I wasn't connected to TLCCA, but I heard that there was gonna be a meeting in Austin. So I go driving up there, and it's like 2.5 hours away. It is not easy to get to. And so I get up there, and there's probably about 100 providers in a room, and there's 4 people sitting at, like, a desk in front of us, and they start talking about how this is going to be a really great thing and there's going to be these pre-K partnerships, and we're like, what's a pre-K partnership? Oh, well, the districts are going to partner with you, and so that way you'll they'll have some of your kids in their program and some of their kids in your program. And we're like, well, how's that going to work? Well, don't worry about it. We'll work out the details later. Well, how are we going to get paid? Don't worry about that. We'll work out the details later. Everything we asked about,
Mhm.
they had no answers for, and we're like, "Well, can y'all put a pause on it? Let us be able to sit down with somebody and talk about it." And they're like, "Well, it's pretty much a done deal. We just kinda wanted to let y'all know about
Let you
it."
know. Mm.
So, yeah, and so that summer, I had to try to research and find resources and stuff, and there really wasn't anything out there yet for us, but we contacted our district, told them, what we had heard from the state. They had not heard from the state yet that this is something that they were gonna have to do in terms of trying to partner with us. Um, Went through the process. We were a 4-star, provider in the area, so that was one of the
Mhm.
qualifiers. They came and saw our center. We had had the same pre-K teacher at that point for almost 20 years, just awesome. Not a certified pre-K teacher. She had her CDA, but she had
Mhm.
been teaching a curriculum-based
Mhm.
4-year-old pre-K for 20 years. Um, got to, what's called a memorandum of understanding. That was a new term for me. And then in September, they decided, you know what? We think this is too much to take on right now. We're going to use the 3-year waiver because that was a provision that the state put in there. If you couldn't do it right away, you could wait 3 years and then you would have to start it. So what happened literally across the state is that all the districts said, we're going to use the waiver. Okay. And the thing was, there were rules written in there, so you can't expand pre-K. You can't build a new pre-K center. in your district and stuff until you've gone through this process of trying to get a pre-K partnership. So 2020 happens, and then COVID hits, the school shut down for 2 years. And so while they're working remotely, all of us are being told we have to stay open. We have to be there for the essential workers. Doesn't matter if our lives are at risk or the kids that we're caring for are at risk. What's the difference between a school district classroom and ours in terms of risk factor? We're still doing pre-K. We didn't shut down our pre-K classes. But then in 2023 or 2022, when things started opening back up, the school districts moved forward with pushing their full day 4-year-old pre-K. And we started losing our 3 and 4-year-olds to the districts. And then we start seeing advertisements, and all of a sudden they are offering private pay pre-K options for families that don't qualify at 50% less than what we charge for it. And so we were like, hold on. Who let public schools charge private pay? That puts us in direct competition.
Mm-hmm.
And did some research. It goes all the way back to 2008. And
Mm-hmm.
the only reason they didn't use it back then up until this point was they weren't mandated to do pre-K. They didn't have to, so none of them were doing pre-K. So this has become a huge, huge issue for us in the state. And so last year, 2025, was the first year where when we sent out our survey, there were some providers that lost all 24 kids in their pre-K class literally
Mm-hmm.
overnight the first week of school. Nobody really knew this was coming. And so across the board in that one August, there were about 400 students that left private pre-K into the public school system. And so now here we are, we're August of 2026, school starting up next week, and everybody's in that same position of, am I going to have my 3 and 4-year-olds or not? Because a lot of the school
Mm-hmm.
districts opted this year to also start taking the 3-year-olds. So we, fortunately, as TLCCA, in the work we've been doing over the last 4 years, we've built a relationship with the governor's office. We've built a relationship with the Texas Workforce Commission that does the subsidy program. We've built a relationship with the commissioners of licensing. We have been sounding the alarm that legislatively, if something's not done to to put a hold on this, it's going to devastate our providers. So there are some legal actions that we're involved in right now. I can't talk about it specifically,
Sure.
but as an entity, we brought on a political consultant to kind of help us navigate things. We've got the attorney general looking into the issue to see if there's any laws that the school districts may have broken by not doing partnerships before issuing bonds for one district spent $60 million to open up a pre-K center for 600 students. And that one's opening in June. I mean, opening this month in August. So those are the kind of things that, we're continuing to fight for. But the big win for us, the big win was not this last session, but the session before that, we have something in Texas called interim charges. So, in the middle of a summer, before the next session starts, the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the House put out these charges that they want both the House and the Senate to look at when they go into session. And for the first time ever, 4 years ago, childcare was written into the interim charges for them to look at, and they put it under economic development. They didn't put it
Mm.
under education because we had finally made them understand that childcare is
Yeah.
part of the infrastructure of the economy. And if you don't keep that strong, what happens to other businesses? So for 2 cycles in a row now, childcare is on the agenda. And in Texas, that was just a huge, huge win for us. And so we're making strides. We had some positive things happen, a property tax break for child care centers that are participating in the subsidy program. Um, we got it put into place so that if you're a child care worker, you are at the top of the list to be able to get subsidy. If you're taking care of a subsidized child, you should be able to get subsidy for your own child. So that was written into law. So our big fight this year is going to be on the pre-K, and we'll start working again on that come January.
Yeah. I think this conversation is so important, Tim, because this is a national conversation. This is
Mhm,
happening in every single state. Um, Might have happened in your state a little sooner, but it is definitely happening here. It's been happening here, and I don't care what channel. My whole news feed on my social media is all childcare. It's happening in
mm,
every state. The conversation about childcare, and I think the other thing too, like you said, going back to the economics is that working families don't only work during the school day. What's happening during summer? What's happening at
mhm,
weekend care, night care? Like there are many different types of early childhood programs and facilities and providers, right? We're not all just traditional, open at 9 and close at 2. Like
mhm.
that's not the reality of the workforce. So I think that when they're making these bills, they have to really understand that the impact that's gonna have on providers and businesses and the businesses that count on those employees to come to work. So, I mean, every business is just gonna run during the school day.
Well,
That's not gonna
exactly.
really be the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
one of the things I talk about to childcare business owners, but also to legislative people, is that in order for a childcare program, whether it's a home center, faith-based center, licensed center, whatever it is, there has to be an ecosystem around that childcare program to support it. So
mm,
there has to be affordable housing in the area. So the workforce that we draw from um, can live and work closely. I mean, somebody's not going to drive 30 miles to go work at a childcare center. That's just not economically possible.
mhm,
You have to have enough families in the area that can afford the fees that the program has to provide. Um, and if it's going to be a subsidized program, there has to be enough money in the subsidized program to pay the provider what it costs them to provide the care. And so that's not typically how we talk about childcare. We don't talk about it from the business perspective, but for the decision makers who decide where money goes, whether at the federal level or at the state level, you have to start at home with your representatives locally and explain to them all the pressures that are on you as a business. Why is it that you don't do overnight care? Well, it's difficult to find people to work overnight, in childcare. You would have to have a director for the day and a director for the night. So where do those people live or exist? Same thing with weekend care. You've got to have people that are willing to work on the weekend. So it's not like you can just say, oh, here's some money to go open up a childcare center in a desert. Are the other things in place to make it work? And so those have been new conversations in this realm of childcare. Is like, what are all the pieces that have to be brought together, not just funding? What are the other things that are going to make an impact on it being successful?
yeah. I feel like this is just something that we just don't come together enough as an industry. I mean, there are some great organizations, but I feel like a lot of times, I don't know how many childcare centers you have in your state, but I know the number is extraordinarily high. But when people are going down to our state house, maybe there's 20 providers that show up out of, thousands and thousands of licensed programs. So you can't just like sit back and not do anything and then complain. Like that is counterproductive. You have to get involved.
You
Again,
do.
do it at a level that you're comfortable, but you have to get involved for sure. I there's just there's so many things. I feel like you had said earlier, like we feel like we have to directly compete with schools, but I almost feel like it's not a fair advantage. And I don't know about in your state, are the ratios in your school the same as the ratios for a private program? Are they the same?
Oh no, and when I started doing our after school programs, we've been doing them for about 20 years now. Okay, so my mom had started them before I got here, and initially, there wasn't a whole lot of regulation around it, and then when they came up with the after school program regulations, which were separate from um, child care center regulations,
Mhm.
I'm going through there, and the playgrounds that the kids play on all day long are no longer qualified because they don't meet all the criteria. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the supervision of the kids, a fourth or fifth grade kid can go down the hallway to go to the bathroom by themselves, but when they're with me at 3 o'clock, I have to take the whole class and have them stand in the hallway for that kid to go to the bathroom. uh, Class size, a gym teacher can have 40 students in the gym running around crazy, no assistant in there or whatever. And then when they get to me, it's a 1 to 22 and 1 to 26, and it was just crazy. And it's like, how is it that the safety measures that I have to adhere to change at 3 o'clock when I'm in the same building on the same playing ground as those kids were 10 minutes before they got to me? So
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing that we're tackling going forward, is helping our legislators understand, if you're going to do things that put 3 and 4 year olds into the public system, you need to
Mm-hmm.
understand that there's no safety measures in that current system for those kids in a way that it's put on us. So you either
Mm-hmm.
lighten up on us or you make it harder on them, because there's a financial price for every regulation that we have to deal with. That's part of what drives cost in addition
Yeah.
to the workforce. But the public schools have a much broader base to draw revenues from to do things than what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is not a level playing field by any means. And I'm sure it's
No.
like that in most states.
Absolutely, and that was one of the bathroom thing is definitely one of those things. But in our state, our ratio for school age is 1 to 13, but that same kindergartner can be in a class with one teacher with 26.
Correct.
It's like half. It's like literally
Right.
half. So yeah, it's crazy, and it isn't even just ratios. And I don't want to talk about children like as their dollar signs. Like, let's just talk about, like you said, the playground. I'm going to tell a real quick story just for sake of time, but just to drive the point home. When I was doing my field study in a public school in a kindergarten class, I went to wash my hands in the classroom. There was no hot water. I said, "Oh, the hot water isn't working." She said, "It hadn't been working for 5 years, Erica." I said, "Oh my God." Now, I was a little taken back because this particular school was the school where my children went to. Anyway, the hot water didn't work. And I don't know that it was the whole school, but in that particular classroom, the hot water did not work. Fast forward, my after school program during a visit, those of you who own a school are going to relate. During the visit, my hot water tank went. The DSWAF worker was there doing her regular inspection. And she said, "Well, you can't open tomorrow because the hot water is not working." I said, "Well, I'm going to call the plumber. He said he could be here by 10 o'clock, but we have our before school kids." She said, "No, you can't open." I said, "But they're only here for an hour." She said, "You cannot open if you don't have hot water." She said, "If I come here tomorrow and you're open, I'm going to pull your license." I said, "Okay." I called a parent who was a plumber. We went to Home Depot. We grabbed the hot water tank from the store off the shelf. He stayed there that night and put together the hot water tank. At
Mhm.
7:01, the inspector was at my school. She said, "I told you you couldn't open." I said, "No, you told me I couldn't open if I didn't have hot water." She stormed in the
Mhm.
building, turned on the water. I had hot water. But I mean, I asked for a 2-hour extension. The public
Mhm.
school around the corner, less than 2 miles away, hadn't had hot water for 5 years. How is that fair?
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Right.
And these are the stories that
Yeah.
people need to know. We want safety. We're not saying to lessen the safety, but we should all have the same safety regulations.
Right.
Best practice is best practice. It shouldn't be, "Oh, in this building it's best practice, but in this building it's not." That's not fair.
Exactly. Well, and COVID, kind of shown how differently everything is viewed. All of a sudden, it wasn't safe for teachers and kids to be
Mhm.
in that public school environment because of the potential for spread of the virus and stuff.
Mhm.
But that same 3 and 4 year old could be in our building, and
Mhm.
our workers put at risk because it was
Mhm.
necessary for the economy to keep going. And so I tell people that legislators don't know what they don't know. When they get
Yeah.
elected and they leave the town that they're in and they go to DC or they go to the state capitol, all they're bringing with them is the job that they had before they left and maybe some little side things that they did. But any other industry that operates in that state that is needing something, unless that industry goes and explains to that legislator what their business is about and what they need and how it's important to the state,
Yeah.
that legislator's not going to pay attention to it. It's not going to be on their radar. They're not going to go look for stuff because they're coming with an agenda. And so it's very important that, again, starting locally, especially when they're on break, saying, you know, Mr. So and so, my name is so and so, and I operate a small business in your community. It happens to be a childcare business, and I'm having some issues with some of the state policies and the local policies. Um, I need to set up a meeting with you to see what your office can do to help me. Just that basic, but coming at them from that business perspective, because she was going to shut down your business. And if she had shut down your business for that day, the 30, 40 kids that you have, their parents
Hmm.
would have had to have taken off work for that day, and the ripple effect goes from there. And
Yeah.
so that's the stuff that people don't understand. And a little bit of common sense, 1 hour without hot water is not going to put a child at a safety risk.
Yes. Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times these licensing reps are not held accountable for being the Gestapo when trying to come in. They are not the be all end all to it. They like to think that they are, but a lot of times we don't challenge them because we're afraid of retribution.
Hmm.
And that's why it's important that in your state, if you're not a member of some type of state childcare association group, that advocates at a higher level for you as a business, um, you can go to those. I get calls all the time now that people know about TLCCA in the state, and they're like, "Tim, I just had this childcare rep come in here and do this to me." I'm like, "Okay, let me call licensing in Austin and see if we can get something, done about that." Tim, I haven't gotten my payments for the last 2 weeks from TWC. What should I do? Let me call my reps and that. And
Hmm.
so having somebody else that can help you with that,
Help you.
but
Yeah.
that means you have to help that organization. You have to become a member of it. You have to support them. If they call and say, "Hey, we need providers to come up and testify," as hard
Yeah.
as it is to close your doors, if you let your parents know that you're having to go to the state capitol to try to find a way to make it better for them,
Hmm.
to maybe find a way to help get some money to help them pay for childcare, they're going to be okay with you having to close if you can let them know in advance. Um,
Yeah.
and it's being transparent with everybody. What we do costs money to do it. And without
Yeah.
money being there, we can't do it. We can't make the repairs to the hot water heater, those kind of things. So that voice, that local voice, that individual voice is so, so, so important.
Yeah, and these conversations matter. I can remember, probably about 2.5 years ago, we were running a parent, advisory board meeting, and I remember we were just talking about funds and money and stuff like that, and a parent had said something, and I turned around and looked at her and said, "Do you realize if things don't change that the childcare industry is done for?" And she didn't understand. She said, "What do you mean by that?" I said, "If all of the preschool children in our city go into public schools, childcare as you know it is done." And she's like, "Well, what, well, babies and tot." I'm like, "Listen, with the ratios and number, but people don't understand that. If I only can watch 4 children with one employee, it's almost the same. It's sometimes it costs us money. You know that, Tim. We know the numbers, right?
Right,
Sometimes it
right,
costs us money
right.
to do infants. Toddlers, maybe you make $5, right? Most of the money that you make to sustain the business comes from either school age or pre-K, right? You
Mm,
can't sustain it on those little bit of numbers. But again, parents don't always realize. So to go one better, if you have to close your business, maybe you take the parents with you too. Because again, those are the people who vote. Those are the people whose
mhm.
voices sometimes matter more because they look at it as, well, you're not as biased, right? You're not, this is
Right,
like a community problem, not just
right.
a business owner problem. So I say, if you have to close your business, bring the parents with you too. Yeah.
Well, and another thing that happened in Texas 4 years ago was the Texas Restaurant Association, which is a statewide organization that a lot of restaurant owners are members of. They came and gave testimony and said, to our legislators, what are y'all doing to help with childcare? Because our
I mean, their
industry is saying
staff.
that they
Yeah.
can't find workers, they can't find waiters and that kind of stuff
Mm.
because they're having trouble finding childcare or affording childcare. So we as this big state association who there's 72,000 members or something, that many restaurants around the state are coming to you saying, if you don't do something about this, our industry, our restaurant industry is going to be impacted. Well, that was very powerful to have a different business type coming
Mhm.
in and saying how important we were to their business. And so that was another thing until it happened. I didn't think about it. I went, oh, yeah, I need to be trying to go and get some of these bigger corporate groups trying to meet
Yeah.
with their HR department saying, hey, are y'all having trouble hiring staff? Well, what are you hearing from potential, employees and stuff? Are they talking that it's difficult? Are you losing? Are you having people come to you saying, hey, I have to quit my job because I can't afford my childcare? You know?
Yeah.
Um, and again, but that's up to us to get those stories out there and be willing to put ourselves out there in front of that. Um, I had something else, but I just lost the thought. So we'll keep
That's
moving
okay. It
forward.
happens. All right. So we're gonna start wrapping up. But Tim, I want to close with a few practical questions so that every leader listening knows what they can do next. Maybe what is one organization or association that childcare leaders should connect with?
So the difference for me in our state was the primary organization membership, because there was only two membership organizations. One was Texas AEYC, which was the Texas Association
Mm-hmm.
for the Education of Young Children. Great organization for putting on conferences and trainings and so forth, um, advocating for children and education components and quality measures.
Mm-hmm.
But their focus wasn't on business operations. When I found TLCCA and it was other business owners working on behalf of other business owners and trying to find ways to deal with rising insurance, deal with rising property taxes, all those kind of things. From a business owner standpoint, it was like, oh, that's the organization that I need to be a part of because they're having the same problems that I am. And so a bigger voice addressing that is going to help that. So in Texas, Texas AEYC and TLCCA, Texas Licensed Child Care Association, we live in the same environment. I'm members of both groups. Okay. And so it doesn't mean one or the other, but you need to find the one, if your business is being affected, you need to find a group in there that is business related. If not, we're also part of the National Child Care Association, which is NCCA, which is the conference you were talking about in
Mm-hmm.
back in Tennessee. Uh, that organization and our organization, TLCCA, can help you get a state association of business childcare owners started in your state. So I would just do a Google search initially to say, what is the childcare business organization in Tennessee, in Nevada, wherever
Mm-hmm.
you're at. If you're having
Yep.
trouble finding that, you can reach out to me and we'll I guess, get some connection things for my email and so forth. You can reach out to the National Child Care Association or tlcca.org. Again, tlcca.org, which is our state organization. Send us an email and say, hey, I'd like to get an organization started in my state, or do you know if I have one in my state? And we can try to help people get connected that way to it.
Yeah, if you get the Child Care Owner magazine, on the back page, there is also, if your state has one, there is a directory there too. But there's definitely not one in all 50 states. So if you have a state that doesn't have one, I mean, maybe you start one. Maybe you get together with some of the child care owners and you start one in your state, which is what happened here in Rhode Island. Marianne Shellcross, who is now a state representative, started one
Mhm.
here in our state probably about 15 years ago. So we're very lucky to have one here in Rhode Island. Um, What information should childcare owners begin collecting from their own programs to start strengthening their advocacy points? Because when you go, you don't have a lot of time. You need to know what are your points, what's the data that supports it. So, what information should they start collecting?
So I think if you have historical information about your enrollment, let's say last year your enrollment was at 100 and now your enrollment's at 50. So what are the things that you can point to that have potentially impacted it?
Mm.
Was it that last year your public schools expanded pre-K and so then you lost your pre-K? Is it that you had a full baby room last year, but this room you only have half a baby room? Well, is it because parents are telling you it costs too much? Knowing kind of what's impacting or what you think might be impacting enrollment is kind of key. The other thing is you can immediately today, when you get off of this call, um, find out who are the local reps in your state for your area. You need to find that out, both your House of Reps and state senator, so that you can start getting to know people in their local office. You don't have to go to the state office. Everybody has local offices. Get those introductions going. If you are like it was in my area when I got here 18 years ago, this community was very siloed. The childcare owner directors and owners in this area did not speak to each other. They did not get together because they viewed each other as competition. And so my mom had been in the area for 20 years and couldn't tell you, she might know their name, but they had not gotten together. I think today there's less of that. But
Mm-hmm.
if you still don't know at least 5 or 6 of the other owner operators in your area, again, this week, next week, get on the phone, call them, say, "Hey, can we get together for coffee? Can are you I know your business has to be affected like my business, but can we get together? Let's get to know each other. Let's see if maybe we could go talk to our representative together because that's what's going to help build that coalition that you need to get the change going." We can't be afraid of each other. We can't view each other as competition. There's too many other things pushing against us to feel
Mm-hmm.
like we're competing with each other. So that would be the other thing that I would suggest.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Here's how we're gonna close up, guys. Every child care owner, director, and educator listening, your experience, your expertise really matters. You understand the realities of our industry because you live them every day. You know what it takes to open the doors, to support a team, to serve families, to meet regulations, maintain quality, and keep your program financially stable. Your voice does not need to stop at your classroom door, your office door, or the front door of your center. We need you to use it locally in your local community. Use it within professional associations. Use it when a proposed bill or policy comes up that would affect your teachers or your families or your ability to just keep serving the children. We cannot continue to allow people who have never done this work before to shape the
Mhm.
voices. We need to do it. We need to shape the voices of our industry. This is our industry, and childcare supports every other industry out there. We are not an extra benefit. We are not an afterthought. We are the workforce behind the workforce. And it's time that we start speaking like it. So thank you for tuning in to the Child Care Directors Chair podcast. Tim, thank you for being such an amazing guest. And you know what? Before we sign out, Tim, tell folks information about your upcoming conference. You guys have a conference
Oh,
coming up.
yeah. Awesome,
Yeah.
yeah, so we have a conference coming up in San Antonio, it's October 1st and 2nd. The 1st is geared more towards directors and owners. On the 2nd, it's for everybody. The hotel that we've, put aside is on the Riverwalk in San Antonio. Conference site's just about 5 minutes away from there. Um, if you know anything about Texas, San Antonio is one of the great places to go, great Mexican food, great Tex-Mex food, lots of music and stuff. We have invited a couple of people from Louisiana and Oklahoma to come down because there's a possibility we're going to be doing a 3-state big conference next fall in
Love
San
it.
Antonio. Yeah, so we're excited about that. So uh, go to our website, tlcca.org. There's a link for conference on there. If you'd like to come be a vendor or a speaker, we have we're have the RFP out for speakers to come and present. We love to have people coming from other states and give us different perspectives. Or if you just
Oh,
want to
we're
come and hear
coming.
more from me, I'll be speaking at some point as well.
Yeah, we're coming, Tim. And your conferences are so fun. They always have a fun theme, and the theme is not boring. So we were really lucky. We had the Wicked theme last time, and this time is a Disney theme. So if you're one of those folks who likes to really have fun in a conference, dress up, participate, have some fun, and laughs while you learn, this is a great conference to attend. We will also leave the link for that below in the show notes. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in with us today. As always, we love you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Before you go, ask yourself, what's one leadership lesson you'll put into action this week? Then share one takeaway with your leadership team, because Erica believes that great leaders don't just grow themselves, they help others grow too. Ready to keep growing? Join Erica inside the ECE Trailblazers Leadership Membership at childcaredirectorschair.com. Proudly sponsored by Watch Me Grow. Together, we believe leadership isn't a title, it's an action. And we'll save your chair for next time.